Hi everyone, thanks for joining today, the Space to Grow webinar at the University of Essex. So today we'll be focusing all around social media and in particular social media for B2B lead generation. So our social media series has been really popular so far. And if you've missed any of the previous topics, the previous webinars, you can find them all on our YouTube channel, Essex Startups on YouTube. So Dan, what have we covered so far? We've covered organic social media advertising, as well as a broad overview of social media as well. So they're all on there on our YouTube channel for you to watch whenever you like. But as I say, today we're all about B2B lead generation. So before we get started, just a few bits from myself. So my name is Josh Clark. So I'm the Business Support Coordinator at the University of Essex. I oversee the Space to Grow program and the Angels of Essex investment platform. So the Space to Grow program contains webinars like this one today. We cover all kinds of topics around investment readiness for both entrepreneurs and investors. So please do stay tuned to our social channels and our website and our events pages to stay up to date with all our latest Space to Grow events. And the Angels of Essex platform is an equity investment platform designed to help investors invest in innovative startup businesses. And I'm sure we'll have many of those on the call today. So, as I mentioned, I've already touched on him, but Dan Spicer from Ventura Digital. Some of you may have already seen the previous webinars. Social media expert and runs a digital marketing company, Ventura Digital. And he's here today to speak all about lead generation. But yeah, Dan, thanks for joining us and take it away.
Great, thank you, Josh. Thanks everyone for joining in. Thanks for your time today. So a bit of background about myself. Josh mentioned, so I'm founder, strategy director of Ventura Digital, Essex-based performance marketing agency. So we call ourselves a data-driven performance marketing agency, as we use a lot of data to kind of inform decisions and inform our strategies. And you'll see a lot of that as I work through kind of the conversation for the next half hour or so. My background has always been in social media. So the last decade plus, I've worked in various agencies, tech companies, and also client side in specific social media roles. Prior to founding Ventura 4 years ago, I was with a company called Hootsuite. They're a social media management tool. So I led the community team there for Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and supported with various social media projects, both internally and for a number of the customers that they have. And then prior to that, I was working in a number of different agencies in London in various social media roles. So a lot of the conversation today is from a culmination and evolution of implementing social across both B2B and D2C brands over the last few years. So hopefully have some interesting insights to talk through with you, and really interesting to see that over 50%, so half the people that are attending the call don't have a social media strategy in place. So hopefully we can tick some boxes for you and give you some inspiration into the types of things that we need to think about. And I suppose in that context of not having social media and not having a social media strategy in place, it's not surprising because of the fairly long and convoluted probably buying journey that many of you on the call have with your customers. So depending on the nature of your business, your buying journey for a customer might be anywhere from 6 months to 24 months if they already have an incumbent piece of equipment or technology that is already doing a job, and you're trying to sell to those B2B organizations for them to buy a service or a product that is replacing something they already have. Then often the B2B buying journey is long and considerate. So there's lots of considerations in a B2B buying process and purchase decision, and also lots of people involved in that buying process. So fundamentally there's obvious challenges with thinking about how social media can play a role. But importantly, what is obvious is that this long buying journey, this kind of elongated buying journey, has multiple touch points along that, and there is a significant volume of research that is being done, of course, when you're buying B2B products, whether that's a service or whether you're a tech company, or whether you're selling a bit of equipment into agriculture, whatever it might be. There's obviously research that needs to happen as per this visualization, and happen over and over again, to understand that you're buying the right product for your business. And clearly there are multiple online touch points, which I've just circled here, that give you an opportunity, that give you as an organization an opportunity to get in front of people, and get in front of those senior stakeholders that are making the buying decision while they're conducting that research. And every single one of these circled points is an potential online interaction, and there are specific areas where social media is actually called out in terms of being part of the research process. So it's your responsibility as a business, as a stakeholder within that business, to first of all understand this buying journey that your customers go through, understand the different research questions that they ask themselves, that they search, they look for online, and ensure you're putting yourselves in the best position to be visible when they are conducting that research, so that ultimately you can generate a lead when they are ready to buy, and then obviously you can use that lead and push that lead into your typical sales function to then convert that lead. And we'll talk about funnel marketing, and effectively that is the traditional view of funnel. On the left-hand side, problem identification being your kind of upper funnel brand awareness campaigns. And then on the right-hand side, your supplier selection being your conversion campaigns, your bottom of the funnel campaigns. So nothing is different in terms of kind of a traditional view of marketing. It's just slightly different from a B2B because there are many more touch points, but that also gives you many, many more opportunities to get in front of people when they are researching and when they're making decisions, unlike direct to consumer businesses where it's often a commodity purchase, or it's something a decision that's made on the fly. From a B2B organization, you've got even more opportunity to nurture your potential customers, make sure you're doing the right things to get in front of them, which we'll talk about, and then get to a point where you can convert them as a customer. But if we think about that, and sorry, this was a Gartner report. So if you search Gartner buying journey, there's a 100-page white paper that talks about this in intricate detail. So there's some bedtime reading for you. But this is the Gartner buying decision journey. And then Global Web Index, a big research firm, also did some research in the B2B buying process, and to look at kind of the funnel marketing piece I mentioned. And really interesting, the outputs of that survey showed that from a B2B perspective, a large volume of social media behavior and interaction occurs at the upper funnel research side of things. So when you are thinking about where you're going to get value from social media, you do have to start thinking about this funnel marketing concept, and really ensuring that you've got all of your different building blocks at each stage of the funnel, from discovery, so on the left-hand side here, people searching for particular products, all the way through to kind of deciding what to buy, in terms of making sure that your remarketing campaigns are running so that you can get in front of them at the right time when they're ready to buy. So I'll touch on the funnel marketing concept, but that's something that I'll continue to push, and I'll talk to some of the tangible elements of that in a second. To summarize that, obviously the Gartner report and the Global Web Index report, it's obvious that the B2B buying journey has fundamentally changed. There's an IDC report on the left-hand side here that says 75% of B2B buyers now use social media specifically to research. Forrester report in the middle, 70% of B2B buyers' journey is actually complete before they even engage you as a business. So someone might have contacted you to buy your product or your service, but actually they've already made that decision by looking at your social media content, by looking at your website, by looking at all the resources you've got, by making a decision that you're the right product or service for them without even contacting you. So that kind of really just validates the opportunity that social media is one of those important channels. Because if a person is making a decision that you're their right product or service without even contacting you, then you only have few opportunities to make sure you're saying the right thing when they're looking at your website, when they're looking at your social media. So it's vital that we think about social media as an important part of the buying journey. And then no surprise, on the right hand side, Nielsen study that shows 92% of consumers trust word of mouth and recommendations above all other forms of advertising. So social media is effectively word of mouth on steroids. It's just people having conversations with each other in real time at rapid speed, and gives you the opportunity to allow your current customers, your advocates of your brand and your business, to share, to talk about you, to recommend you. So if you can make it as easy as possible for them to share your business, your product, your services, then majority of the battle's already won, because they can then recommend you onto their peers, onto their network, who will then go on to click through to your profiles, engage with you and research you without you even really having to target. So that then starts to bring in some thinking around, okay, what customer advocacy programs do I have in place for my current customers that make it easy for them to share? You can typically think of a customer advocacy program as like a refer a friend model in a direct consumer world. You see direct to consumer, there's lots of refer a friend programs. Doesn't quite work in B2B, but the same concept rings true in terms of customer advocacy. Like if you have someone that's already using your B2B product or service and they're happy with it, then what can you do to make it easy for them to share their happiness and recommend your product on social media? Because people trust people. So the more that you can accelerate that, the easier it will become for you to generate reach and generate value from your social media. So just on that final point, a similar Gartner report there says that 63% of consumers who ask for information about your business won't actually make a purchase for at least 3 months. So again, like, people are interacting with you and people are consuming your content. And often when I talk to business and brands and they're like, oh, I can't generate any value from social media. I've got these reports on Google Analytics and no one's clicking on and buying on my ad. No one's clicking on my ad and buying my product or service. Well, there's a fundamental misunderstanding, therefore, of people's buying journeys. And people will click on your ad, but it's going to take a minimum of 3 months before they come back and purchase. So we need to be thinking about the buying journey, the longevity of that, and ramping all of the good stuff that you're doing or can do on organic and paid social. And then over a period of time, ensuring that you're starting to see the numbers move in the right direction. So increased site traffic from social media, increased engagement with your websites from social media traffic, referral traffic into any of your online kind of portals, hubs, depending on the type of business. But it's a really fundamental that obviously you have a clear picture of your buying journey and you can understand where social plays a role. And a key consideration from that is this report here by Gartner, which basically says, actually said by 2020, so it's a little bit of an old report, but I still think that the metrics ring true. So you probably already lost out if you're part of this report, but the report showed that by 2020, 1 in 4 businesses will lose their market position due to social business incompetence. So the report basically coined the term social business incompetence. And the report talks to businesses not being able to connect the dots between social media and value, like where they can get value from social media. They're posting on social, they're posting on LinkedIn, posting on Twitter, but don't fundamentally understand where that value is going to come from. So to help with that question, we put together this kind of social strategy framework. So in our opinion, these are the kind of 4 key pillars where an organization can get value from social media. Traditionally, on the right-hand side, companies will start with the community element, so organic social. So starting a LinkedIn profile and posting some content and trying to gain some followers is a good starting point. And then advocacy programs, as I've already mentioned, and influencer programs. So if you're targeting people with significant reach and getting them to distribute content for you. But there are other areas of value that social media can generate. Three other pillars: social selling, social governance, and social HR. Social selling is the big one, obviously, that we're focusing on from a lead generation perspective. Social advertising being the most important pillar to that. LinkedIn advertising, as an example, gives you the ability to target by job title, by company name, by industry, by seniority, by size of company, and put your content in front of the exact buyer that you want to get in front of. So that's an obvious tactic. And then others like social listening is effectively the I suppose the art and science of monitoring social to understand how people perceive your products and services in a market, and then using that to give you competitive advantage. So for instance, monitoring all your competitors, monitoring for any complaints on social media about your competitors, seeing what the fundamental issues are with your competitor products, and then positioning your product in alignment with that. So we are better than our competitor because we've seen you've had an issue with that part of the product, and we do that a lot better, and say that in your comms. So that's around kind of sales intelligence, and then sales capability. What I mean by that is if you have a team, I know there's lots of startups, but so you potentially don't have a team, but depending on how many you have, if you've got co-founders, etc. Sales capability is the fundamental understanding of how you as an individual and how your teams can use social media to generate awareness of your product. So for instance, personal LinkedIn profiles. We've here in the office, you can't see, I'm pointing to a window and I've got a background. Here there's 13 of us, all of us with LinkedIn profiles. On average, the team have 920 connections and connections to people that need marketing services as a B2B organization. So 13 times 900, quick maths, I'm going to go somewhere over 10,000 people that they can reach when they post on their LinkedIn profile. And if we can, and I can, and as a team, we can understand how to distribute that content to the right people. That's a significant volume of people, targeted people we can get in front of by using social media without having to worry about how many followers the Ventura page has, which is a lot less than the combined followers and connections that everyone has on LinkedIn. That's social selling. And then social governance and social HR as you scale. So once you move, you get your Series A, B, and multiple rounds of funding, you'll start to grow a team and start to kind of bring in considerations around governance, so reputation management, monitoring social, picking up on queries and complaints and ensuring you respond effectively and in a timely manner. And then social HR, so reducing the amount you have to pay in recruitment fees. Apologies if there's any recruitment agencies that join the call. Reducing the amount you have to invest in recruitment agencies by understanding how LinkedIn advertising works, or Twitter advertising, or even Facebook advertising works, so you can promote your own roles, save that cost, gain return on investment from the savings of that cost, and utilize social effectively from that perspective. So lots of considerations around kind of social HR as you grow and scale. So hopefully that gives you a kind of core pillar, and I've highlighted here on orange some of the key elements from a B2B perspective. And what we'll focus on initially in this next kind of 20 minutes or so is organic and social advertising, and touch upon advocacy and influencers and some tangible things you can think about in terms of your B2B social media strategy. So to kick off with platform perspective, obviously we had that poll at the start, 79% of you use LinkedIn, and then Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter following up with, what was it, 5%, one person using TikTok, which is super interesting. Unfortunately, can't go into too much detail in 20 minutes around the TikTok and Snapchat strategies as well. So I'm going to try and meet the masses and cover off as many points as I can. And ultimately that's going to focus around kind of LinkedIn as a core B2B social media platform, and the ability to target and get in front of relevant people. And then also Facebook and Instagram as a slightly different strategy, less around targeting, more around remarketing, but I'll talk to that in a second. But really, this is the UK. This is the breakdown of the monthly active users across all of these platforms in the UK. And monthly active users means logged on once in the last kind of 30 days. which all of the platforms release different types of data in some way, shape or form to that instance, but gives you a kind of a view on the most popular platforms in the UK. Facebook obviously being the behemoth, and Instagram obviously being owned by Facebook, as making up the top three, and then LinkedIn, importantly, growing and continuing to grow with significant engagement within the platform. So offers you some really interesting and strong kind of B2B marketing opportunities, which I'll specifically touch upon. So first and foremost, content is something to discuss. So I'll just flip back to this slide because I forgot to reference that there is an umbrella at the top of this, as we can clearly see, which is content marketing strategy. So as I mentioned, kind of social media is effectively a word of mouth platform. It's the ability for you to publish content, talk about your business in many ways, talk about yourself as a stakeholder within that business, and publish content and then allow people to engage. So content and creative is one of the major considerations when we're thinking about how to get value from social media, and it's a starting point. And the way I always kind of like to think about it from a B2B perspective is there's lots of things you can talk about, of course. There's lots of ways you can take this depending on the nature of your business. But ultimately, we need to fundamentally just understand how you provide value to your target market. On average, an average person that uses social media will see 3,600 messages a day on social media. Social media feeds are saturated, and increasingly so. 92% of all social media interactions happens on this thing, and people are just scrolling feeds and feeds worth of posts on here. Effectively. So you have to figure out how you're going to get cut through with your message and how you're going to provide the most amount of value to really grab someone's attention in and amongst those 3,600 messages that they receive every single day. Sometimes it can be quite challenging, quite scary. And I mean, we host day-long content workshops just to come up with that structure. But the good thing, a good way of thinking about it is this kind of traditional funnel marketing approach that I've touched upon previously, and is a good way of simplifying it to make it easy for you. And every single person goes through that buying journey and goes through that process of thinking about and researching different products. So if I take, say you're a technology platform, I know there's quite a few kind of tech platforms or startups building tools. And let's just use social media as an example. So if you're a social media management tool, if I'm looking for a social media management tool, I might be thinking certain things as I go through this journey. So awareness, there must be a better way of managing 5 different social media platforms. I've got LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, and YouTube. Consideration, is there a tool that will allow me to put all of those in one place so I can manage them better? Preference, I know Hootsuite, I've just found out Hootsuite can do that, Buffer can do that, and Sprout Social can do that. Purchase, I've just bought Hootsuite. Loyalty, I love Hootsuite. Advocacy, you should buy Hootsuite. Those conversations happen through all B2B buying journeys, whatever products or service you offer. It starts at awareness and consideration with a problem that they're looking to solve, works through a research process, finds the solutions, and ends up buying them. So if you can generate content at every single one of those stages by simply coming up with a few themes on answering each of those questions, you'll be in a much stronger position to provide value to the target market wherever they are within the buying journey. And in terms of upper funnel awareness, that could be just simple content around who you are, what you do, why you do it, introducing the brand, introducing the business. Middle of funnel, so that kind of consideration stage might be more specifically about your products and your services. So this is the problem that we solve. This is the problem that you have, and this is how we solve it. And then there's bottom of funnel audiences. Those buying might be testimonials, for instance. So it might be here's a number of our customers who are happy. You've probably seen it on social media, quotes from customers, video, testimonials, talking heads, all of that. So when we're thinking about content, you should be thinking about all of the above. Creating content and creating a calendar that touches on every single one of those. So depending on where they are within that buying journey, whether they're 1 month in, 3 months in, or 24 months into the buying journey, you are regularly posting content that meets the needs of one of those, which will give you the best ability, the best ability to engage them with something that's relevant and valuable, and then drive them into ultimately your website, which will be doing obviously a lot of the hard work in terms of telling them what you need to do. So that's creating content, thinking about how to create content using the funnel. Then you've got to post it and generate some reach. So now you've got your content calendar, you need to start thinking about how you're going to distribute it. So a good way of thinking about that is organic versus paid. So you can post organically. You started up a LinkedIn profile, a Twitter profile, a TikTok profile, and you're posting content organically. And you've got to go through some hard work because you've got to build an audience effectively. And the only way to build an audience is start getting your content in front of people so that they can then follow you. Otherwise, you're just shouting into a black hole. And a good way of doing that initially is by using paid as a kind of initial boosting point. So you don't have to invest lots. There's no minimum spend. Facebook, you can spend literally £2.50, will reach 500 people on Facebook. LinkedIn, slightly more. It's about £25 to reach 500 people, but 500 targeted business buyers. And that will give you that initial traction to then start generating reach, to then hopefully obviously get visibility of your organic once they follow you. So you've got to think about it holistically. And in 2021, there is no such thing as a free organic strategy from LinkedIn if you are starting from ground zero, effectively. Because even if you are using influencer outreach to generate visibility, you're using partners, that's still time. And that's an investment of your time, which is money. And the way I like to think about it is if you are thinking, okay, I can do this for free by using influencers. If you need to spend a day's worth of time coming up with that influencer strategy, how much is a day's worth of time to you? Your day's worth of your time might be worth £500. My argument is why don't you initially put that £500 that you've just spent in terms of time into paid advertising to help you accelerate it quicker? Because £500 is going to get you in front of 10,000 people in Facebook. So there's some thinking around that, but a good way of thinking about it is organic and paid. And if you've been part of any of my previous webinars, algorithm seems to be the word of the week, and effectively both of those buckets, organic versus paid, have algorithms. Please do watch the previous webinars as I go into quite a lot of detail around how those algorithms work. But effectively, every single platform has a slightly different way of distributing content, and you can reach a slightly different number of people in terms of the percentage of your fans. So this is the amount of, if you have a business profile, this is the amount of people your post will reach as a percentage of your followers. So let's focus on LinkedIn. If you have 100 followers on your LinkedIn profile, every time you post content, it will reach 20 of them, because the algorithm is controlling how many people see, because it only wants to show relevant content within those. So please do watch the previous webinars as a whole for half an hour on exactly how that works, and we'll give you a real kind of step up on that. Moving forward, there's a slightly different algorithm for peer-to-peer engagement. So if you have a personal profile on LinkedIn rather than a business page, when you share content on your personal profile, it reaches a greater proportion of your network, of your followers, of your connections. So if I post on Ventura's page and I post a bit of content to 100,000 fans at some point, then it will reach 20,000 people effectively, because it's 20%. And when I post on my personal feed to my 100,000 connections, it will reach 50,000 people by just purely by how the algorithm is prioritizing personal connections, peer-to-peer connections, more relevant connections it sees, versus business. So you can then start to form a picture on, okay, if the peer-to-peer personal algorithm is prioritized, how can we accelerate the reach through that? I.e., do you have partners? Do you have employees? Do you have staff that can help you share content? Because that peer-to-peer algorithm on the right-hand side is going to give you significantly more reach within those. And to put that in context from a LinkedIn world, if you get 28 people to interact with a post on your B2B posts on your LinkedIn profile, so they like, comment, or share, because of how the algorithm will distribute that through their own personal connections feeds, 28 people engaging with that post will drive more reach of that post than if you had 100,000 followers on your LinkedIn page and you posted to your LinkedIn page. So you're generating the same amount of reach with 28 engagements and interactions than if you had 100,000 followers. So then the strategy completely flips on its head, and the strategy should be, in a B2B world, how do we get 28 people to interact with our content rather than how do we get more followers and 100,000 followers? Because it's the interactions and the engagement that give you the used to be called virality, the viral effect of the distribution of that content that gives you that significant reach. And an easy way to think about that is employees. So just as an example, here's an example, a made up example of a social media team of 2 at the top in a company. This company has 100,000 Facebook fans and 20,000 LinkedIn followers. If they post a bit of content, the potential reach is 120,000. So if you add them up, it could potentially reach 120,000. But because of the algorithm I mentioned, the average reach is actually only 2,500. Because on Facebook, you can only reach up to 0.5% of your Facebook followers. Here, 0.47 up on the left-hand side. And on LinkedIn, you can reach 21% of those. So the number is 2,500 on average. However, if you have a company with 100 employees, the average number of LinkedIn followers an employee has is 920. The average number of Facebook friends, 333. The potential reach is exactly the same, there or thereabouts, with 100 employees, but the average reach is 75,000 compared to 2,500. So just by getting the team to interact, like, comment, and share with the content, you can drive significant reach. And that's just to show you scale. If I flick to this shows it for SMB, so we've got a lot of startups. So you might only have 1,500 likes and 200 LinkedIn connections, which means your average reach is actually 81. But if you have 5 people, whether that's team, whether that's staff, whether that's partners, whether that's advocates interacting with that content, your average reach is 3,500. And on a platform like LinkedIn, that's potentially 3,500 valuable B2B connections and people that are seeing that content within those. So it's really important to understand how those algorithms work, and this kind of hopefully kind of gives you an overview of the significant scale of that. And LinkedIn recognize that. So you may not have come across LinkedIn Elevate as a platform. It's for enterprise companies. You can't get it as a startup because there's a minimum spend. But LinkedIn have dedicated platforms and tools like LinkedIn Elevate, which basically allows you as a company to control the messaging that your employees distribute by creating like templated content, by creating like drafted posts, which you can then ping as a notification into your employees' profiles, and they can just click to post once and it all distributes automatically. So as you grow as an organization and you get more and more staff, there are tools and technology that help you accelerate this employee advocacy strategy that I mentioned. And effectively, if you think about the peer-to-peer algorithm, employees is one of them, but a good way of thinking about who else can engage with you is the, I think it's called Pareto's Law, the 90%, 9%, 1 rule, which basically shows that, or says in theory that of all of your customers, of all of your audiences, the people that interact with you, 90% are passive consumers. They will never interact with you, they'll never engage. They'll look at your content, they might find it nice, they might follow you, but they won't actively engage, which is probably me with the majority of brands that I follow on Instagram and LinkedIn. 9% of them are curators, so they might give you the odd like, they might give you the odd retweet, they'll engage with you at a light level, but they won't heavily engage. 1% are creators, so your employees would be in the 1%, so will actively post about you, talk about you, share content about your business. And the question is, who else is in that 1%? Who else can you find that would be in that 1% that would actively talk about you to help you get to this magic 28 number that I mentioned on LinkedIn, if that becomes the strategy. And a couple of others to think about. So employees on the right-hand side are customers. So do you already have customers that are actively engaging with you, that have used your product, that you can speak to, that will be happy to share content, even to the point of if you have a good relationship with them. I've actually had conversations with our customers and actually clients that we work with to say, oh, we just recently posted this LinkedIn post. If you find it interesting, would you mind sharing? And I'm physically asking them to help share, because I know the magic is in that number of interaction engagement. So every like, comment, or share significantly helps the algorithm distribute it. So customers is a consideration, and then also influencers. So do you have any relationships with influencers of interest that have previously engaged with you, that share kind of similar values to you as a business, that might have a network, for instance, that would help kind of engage and distribute content. And that's often where kind of like traditional networking comes into play. Like, we haven't had a chance in the last 12 months, COVID wise, to do traditional networking, but traditional networking face-to-face at various events is a great way to actually meet influencers, because a lot of influencers attend those by nature as speakers, as partners to those events. And often it's a great way of relationship building and maybe getting them to engage with your content within those. But there's value there as well. So yeah, in terms of distributing content, that's a great way to think about it organically, in terms of what are those pools of connections of people that will help share content, because it's vitally important due to how the algorithms work. So worry less about how many fans and followers you got, more around who you can activate in terms of sharing content, engaging in a basic level, liking or commenting on your content. So we talked about the funnel, how the type of content, creating a content calendar, then how you distribute that content and some tactics around distributing content organically through employee networks, through advocacy networks, and through having a core focus on engagement and interaction as the metric that you should be going after, rather than followers, and leveraging those other pools, communities. And then the final way of accelerating kind of from a B2B perspective and actually generating leads. So a lot of this is obviously upper funnel that I've spoken about, brand awareness, brand building. And now we're getting to the nitty gritty of, okay, generating leads and really getting people to contact you or fill in a form or download a white paper, download a lead magnet, whatever that might be. Paid advertising kind of offers significant capabilities. Did a whole session on paid advertising webinar, which talks to some more granular details, focuses more on Facebook as a platform and Instagram. This is all direct to consumer. So some stuff that will overlap there, and I won't touch upon in this. You can grab that on the Space to Grow YouTube channel. But effectively, from a paid advertising perspective, knowing that LinkedIn is obviously a core B2B platform, 28 million UK active users, 350 million worldwide active users, all that have B2B. Apologies if you can hear. I think the bin man has arrived outside my office, so you might be, it's not an alarm. Hopefully it stops in a second, how loud that is. From a LinkedIn perspective, obviously that offers significant kind of demographic and firmographic targeting capabilities within there. So a couple of things to think about. 79% of people have used LinkedIn as per the poll up front. What's important is you've got LinkedIn and you've got LinkedIn Campaign Manager. So Campaign Manager, if you just Google it, is the advertising platform, works separate to the main platform. And you can step through the setup process that talks about the type of things that the type of ways you can target people. One fundamental thing that is always missed from a lot of businesses that I speak to that use Campaign Manager is the setup of the insights tag, which is in the account assets. This is a screenshot. Is in the account assets drop down box, which you can then put onto your website. What that allows you to do is track every single person that visits your website and tracks the company they're from, the job titles that they have, and a whole host of other firmographic data. So first and foremost, if you're generating more traffic to your website, you need to know who's visiting it and if it's the right type of traffic. So the insights tool, the insights tag, is a free tool that LinkedIn offer. Basically, if that person who's visited your website has logged into LinkedIn anytime in the last 90 days, LinkedIn can correlate their profile data and tell you who they are, company name, job title, seniority, company size, all of that. So you can get some really interesting insights into who's actually visiting your site. And actually, you can get their company names as well. So if it's a real hot lead, Potentially you might want to push that into your outbounding process where you just outbound to them directly, connect with them on LinkedIn, phone them, etc. Within those. But here's a screenshot of that. And once you've implemented the insights tag, there's a little section in Campaign Manager called Website Demographics. And then here you can see it, you can actually filter by page. So you can see who's visiting different pages, what companies are visiting different pages, and get some really good insights into it from a B2B perspective in terms of the type of people visiting your site, and potentially push them into outbounding. And then with Campaign Manager, another feature that is often forgotten outside of advertising platforms is the matched audiences. So if I just go back to the insights tag, I think, is it? Right, I cut it off the screenshot, but just below conversion tracking here in this account assets, it says matched audiences, which allows you to do some really interesting things with targeting. First of all, if you've added the insight tag, you get this retargeting audience. So you can basically build audiences of people who visited particular pages. So obviously, if they're in a buying journey and you have a pricing page on your website, as an example of your tech platform, you can see who's visited your pricing page, which naturally you would assume is further down the buying journey. And then you can run ads specific to that. So you know that they've already looked at pricing, so they're going to need a slightly different message than someone who doesn't know who you are or what you do. Or if someone has visited a blog article which talks about, say you're a tech company and you supply business intelligence analytics software, for instance, and you've got a blog article around the top 3 issues with gaining insights from your mobile devices, for instance, and you know someone's read that, you can run advertising campaigns that targets people that have specifically viewed that blog post that says, here is how our tool helps you gain insights from mobile devices, as an example. So you can be much more relevant in your comms to generate leads rather than kind of throwing a spaghetti at a wall and hoping something sticks with your kind of broad brand messaging. So that's retargeting audiences, and then you've got uploaded lists. So if you do have any email data, you can upload that directly to LinkedIn. If you actually have a list of company names, you can upload that to LinkedIn, and it will match the company names with particular profiles, and then you can actually target those individuals through LinkedIn. So some really interesting advanced stuff you can do in LinkedIn, but the 2 main things are, or the 3 main considerations here are, get your insight tag set up so you know exactly who's visiting your site and where the opportunities are from a lead gen perspective. And then look at the matched audiences, especially retargeting, so you can see how many people are visiting pages and put specific messages in front of them. And also, if you have data, be much more advanced around uploading that into LinkedIn and putting specific messages in front of them. So that's kind of the setup process. A couple of key considerations around LinkedIn Campaign Manager. And then ultimately, it's about running advertising campaigns. So there's a few considerations. Back to a funnel, a visualization. You'll see I like a funnel, and effectively, there's different ways you can target. And again, with the messaging, depending on who you're targeting with your funnel messaging, top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, you can set up targeting that aligns to audiences who are more likely to find that message of value. So at the top here, you can target by broad brush demographic audiences and firmographic audiences. So anyone that is a CEO of a particular company within a particular industry. That is very brand awareness, very top of funnel, because you don't know that CEO wants your product or is ready to buy your product. So that would be a very high level brand message around who you are and what you do. We're actually down, as we go down here, you can start to set up campaigns in the middle of the funnel here and the bottom of the funnel that actively retargets people who have already visited your website and have looked at a particular piece of your website. So you might then target a CEO up the top here, drive them into your website with a broad brush message, and then you might retarget that CEO once they've looked at the pricing page with a slightly different message that talks about your prices, for instance. And if you've got these ads set up, multiple ads set up along the funnel, wherever someone comes into your website, whatever they're looking at, they are then going to see a sequenced ad that is aligned to your message. And this is very easy to set up. It's just the thinking around the funnel. Like once you know the message and you know the targeting, it's maximum 20 clicks to get you to a stage where there's a campaign that's live. So the setup process is pretty simple. So if you're thinking about that funnel, what you can then do, as I mentioned, is push people down that funnel. So as I mentioned, you start at the top. You target CEOs, really broad brush with a broad brush message. If they click, they land on your website. So you might show them a video, for instance. Sorry, I put here. So you might have a video about who you are and what you do. Show the video to that CEO of a company. They click on that video. It links to your website. They've now landed on your website, and because you've set up the remarketing pixel and the insight tag, you see that they've looked at the pricing page, you can now show them a different ad based on what they've looked at on your site. So that's ring fencing another audience, and you're pushing them down the funnel. Once they've gone to the pricing page, they might have visited the contact us page, for instance, on the right hand side, and now you know they're ready. So if they've looked at the contact us page but they haven't filled it in, you could then go in with a very specific sales message on that ad. So anyone that's visited the contact page that hasn't filled in the contact form, you might then say, okay, show them a discount, as an example. Sometimes it's not a financial incentive. You might think of a different way depending on your business. But then you could be much more heavy hitting with your call to action to generate those leads. So it's a good way to think about it in terms of advertising campaign. Often when I speak to businesses, they say, oh, I just can't generate value from advertising. I'm spending a lot of money, but people aren't converting. And often that's because when I look at the campaign or talk about the campaign, they're just doing one of these. They're just doing really broad brush, top of funnel campaigns with a message and a video that talks about the business. But best will in the world, 99% of people that you're targeting probably don't care and probably don't have enough time to watch your video, read all your messages. It's the 1% that do care that you want to isolate and then push down the funnel so you can get them to convert. And then the costs should be seen blended. So top of funnel here, for instance, in LinkedIn, the average cost per 1,000 views at the moment is £75. So it's going to cost you £75 to reach 1,000 targeted people. So that's £75. Then you'll generate, on a 1% click-through rate, you might generate 100 clicks at a cost of 80p per click on average in LinkedIn. It's another £80. But then if you generate one conversion or one lead, that should say, not one sale, in a B2B perspective, you generate one lead, then your cost per lead is £155 because it's combined between the two. But it's all based on a funnel approach, understanding who you can target, using the platforms, especially LinkedIn. So I've talked very much about LinkedIn, but Facebook and Instagram have similar targeting options. Just got to think carefully around kind of who you're targeting. And then pushing them down that series of messages and pushing them down that funnel. And then final point on LinkedIn advertising is when you're setting up the campaign, you've got this option for lead generation. And lead generation is a really interesting process where you may have seen it in LinkedIn, where you can have lead gen cards. So this is where on the left-hand side, you've got an ad, which is a typical ad on LinkedIn. And you've actually got a sign up button here. When you click that sign up button on a lead gen card, it doesn't actually send you to the website. It sends you to, it flips and it gives you the form within LinkedIn itself. So you never leave, and it pre-populates the form with all of your LinkedIn details and then sends that to you. And we've had significant success with testing those in terms of improved click-through rate and improved cost per lead. Slightly different process because it sits inside of LinkedIn. So you have to then export that data out and view that data so it doesn't sync in with any other platform. But lead gen cards are something to explore and something certainly that you should be testing from a B2B perspective. And similarly, this is just an example of it in Facebook. There's also an option in Facebook called a lead gen card. You'll see lead generation when you set up a Facebook campaign. In the previous webinar, I talked through setting up campaigns in Facebook, if that's something you're interested in. Exactly the same process. Click sign up, flips round, gives you a form within Facebook, and you never leave. So it reduces the friction of someone having to go to a website, considering 90% of traffic from socials on mobile, go to a website on a mobile, kind of fill in form, kind of tapping in forms on a tiny little device to fill in, kind of and contact you. It removes all of that friction with lead gen cards because it's all pre-populated, and you can have any number of questions that you ask within those lead gen cards. So really interesting opportunity on LinkedIn and on Facebook as well, if that's a platform that you'll use it within those. So in summary, we talked about the content considerations up front. So from organic perspective, aligning your content production with the buying funnel, thinking about the types of questions people will ask on that funnel: awareness, consideration, preference, purchase, loyalty, and developing a content calendar for that. And then really taking the time to understand how the platforms distribute content so that you can leverage that. You can't game the system, but you can certainly leverage your knowledge of how the algorithms work to make sure it gets distributed to a wider pool of people. And that includes things like employee advocacy or influencer advocacy or advocate advocacy, as I mentioned, to help you accelerate organic. And then strategically using paid to distribute, to target, to get in front of the right people with the right message. And by using LinkedIn's targeting capabilities to select industries, job titles, size of company. There's hundreds of different ways you can target all within LinkedIn. So to set up a campaign manager profile and have a look and test. But importantly, if you're going to run paid social, especially in LinkedIn, set up that insight pixel so you know exactly who's clicking through and what companies are actually visiting you. So you've got some information there. Test different targeting, but mainly think about that funnel effectively, especially on a remarketing perspective. So if I just go back up to this bit here, if we just think about the very first stat that I put up front, around 70% of buyers that contact you won't buy for another 3 months, you need to make sure that you're continually in front of them when they are ready to buy. And those remarketing campaigns are a really good way of doing that because they're super cost effective. So the remarketing campaigns only spend when someone has visited your website or visited a particular page. So we're not talking hundreds of pounds. Sometimes we're only talking tens of pounds to have them running constantly in the background because it's often low volume. But if they visit your website and revisit, they'll continually see your ads in their social media feed. So when they are ready to buy, you've already got remarketing running. You're not going to miss them. You're ready to get in front of them, and you'll put yourselves in a much better position to kind of capture that intent when they're ready through those remarketing ads. So hopefully that was helpful. A bit of a whistle stop tour within those. I let it run a little bit because I saw there wasn't any questions in the Q&A, but we've got I think a couple more minutes if anyone does have any kind of specific questions around any of those areas. Happy to talk through.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, as Dan said, any questions, please do get them into the Q&A box. One thing I was going to ask Dan is how much opportunity do you think going forward there is with B2B businesses using some of the newer social media platforms like TikTok and Snapchat? Yeah, how do you see that happening in the next couple of years? Or
yeah, I mean, it's all about the audience, right? So the target market and who you're looking to get in front of. So there are some B2B organizations where channels like TikTok will have a really interesting opportunity. So we work, for instance, with an online platform that connects hairdressers and people looking for hairdressing appointments, as an example. So we promote the platform to try and sign up more hairdressers. That's an obvious kind of, it's a B2B platform because we're trying to interact with hairdressers and hairstylists, but actually TikTok, Snapchat and Pinterest are platforms where hairdressers are actively online and using. So there's an obvious opportunity to use that. So really down to, I suppose, the target audience and which platforms they use. Clubhouse is something that's been significantly discussed a lot over the last kind of few weeks to a month, and that is gaining really interesting traction in the B2B sense. So that's something worth researching. It's getting to a point where it's getting critical mass, such large critical mass where it doesn't seem like it's going to be a fad this time, like the Peaches of this world and all the previous kind of social networks. So I think that one is here to stay, and that's an audio only kind of podcasting social network, which from a podcasting perspective lends its lends itself nicely in a B2B arena. So I think of all of the above, Clubhouse is probably the next opportunity, and the opportunity really as a first mover to gain traction on that, and really make yourself visible on that platform. So I'd certainly think that's probably one to explore.
Okay, thanks, Dan. A couple of questions in the Q&A box now. So the first one's a similar question, I guess the one that I asked about the use of Instagram, and I guess again it probably comes down to the audience there, does it, in terms of, or is there a difference? Is there a move towards people or businesses contacting their target audience away from the kind of workplace platforms?
I think from an advertising perspective, there's a role for all platforms, especially LinkedIn, Facebook and LinkedIn, because it has such a large volume of attention in that platform, and there's a lot of people using it, a lot of people actively using it. So as long as the message is right, people are comfortable. I'm comfortable seeing a B2B message in Instagram if it's something that's relevant to me. The challenge you'll have is if you're using kind of really broad targeting methods in Instagram, then you're going to struggle to hit a relevant person. But if you're using retargeting, for instance, so you're setting up the Instagram tracking pixel and the Facebook tracking pixel, retargeting people that have visited your website and looked at the pricing page, and now you're showing them a video about your product or your service, then that's actually really cost effective, but also really relevant, because it's only people that know who you are, that have spoken about that have engaged with your business, and you're using it as a nurture kind of tactic, ready to kind of warm them up for a sale. So certainly there's a role for all social networks, especially Instagram and Facebook. But often that role is at the retargeting level, kind of getting in front of people that have already engaged your brand and using it to convert them, nurture them and convert them, rather than using kind of Facebook, Instagram for kind of prospecting and customer acquisition, because the targeting probably isn't as of a quality that you require there, and that's where kind of LinkedIn has more value.
Cool, thanks, Dan. And one final question we've got here is around content. So in your experience, what's the most effective content for LinkedIn? And with a caveat that I guess it does vary between industry and what you're trying to communicate, but what kind of content tends to work the best?
Yeah, no, it's interesting actually, because it is evolving really, really rapidly. And I was actually on a webinar a couple of weeks ago, a similar question, and there's a couple of other agencies on the call, and they were saying that they're finding kind of the personal brand and the personal content being more effective, even through a business profile. So having employees, having stakeholders, senior stakeholders, leaders in organizations, creating videos, literally just talking on a video. My background isn't there, you see my phone, but talking on a video and recording kind of your thoughts around particular topics and posting that. There's a lot of saturation in the platform. More and more businesses are using it. 28 million in the UK active users. There's a lot of businesses posting content, and a lot of that content is pretty bland. So you have to find ways of getting cut through, and we are coming full circle to being a lot more personable and personal on the platform to get cut through. So I think there's some things to think about there. Ultimately, it's what value are you providing? Does it answer and solve a need? Does it really speak to a particular problem? Because that's the first stepping stone. And then you've got to think about how you're going to get attention in a field of 3,600 messages a day. And one thing I always say is think about the real estate, like on a mobile device. Like if you're using a video, it takes up more of the screen. If you use a video, it starts auto-playing on your LinkedIn feed. It's very easy as you're scrolling through this to miss content, right? If you've just got feeds and feeds, I can't get it to, yeah. So if I'm just scrolling like this, it's very easy just to miss a piece of text. But if you've got video, or if you've got an image, it takes up more space on your screen, so it's much harder to miss. If you've got a video, the video starts auto-playing. So it's even harder to miss, because at least you want to see what those first few seconds are before you scroll on. So I'd always think about the different ways that people see that content and trying just to grab more real estate. So videos first, if possible, images next, grab some more real estate, and then think about the value that you're providing within that message. If you're thinking about length of video, someone put time. I'm guessing that means length of video, not that I've gone massively over my allocated slot from that. But if we're talking about the length of video, there's lots of, I mean, if you Google it, you'll get a report that says 3 seconds, and you'll get a report that says 2 minutes. So there's lots of lots of information online. And the way I talk about it quite often is that if you just look at the average watch time in social media, the average watch time of a video is actually 3 seconds. And that's because it plays for 3 seconds before, effectively, it plays for 3 seconds before someone makes a decision that it's not valuable for them and then scrolls on. So I always say the first 3 seconds are the most important of any video. If the first 3 seconds of your video just plays music, background music, some nice orchestral stuff as you're building up to the crescendo, then you've already lost them after 3 seconds. So the first 3 seconds needs to say everything you need it to say to capture their attention. And then post those 3 seconds, the average video upload time in social media is 8 seconds on average across all the videos. So if you just want to play the law of averages, first 3 seconds are most important, 8-second video is good enough. But there's no cap. So I've seen people upload 7-minute videos and I've watched really long videos because they've been of significant value. It's been a podcast clip or an audio clip or a video clip of someone kind of providing value, and I'm happy to watch that, especially if it's remarketing. Like if I'm remarketing to someone, I know that they would find this 4-minute video valuable because they've looked at my website and they've looked at that blog post and now I've got a video about that blog post. Then it's worth doing that. But yeah, considerations on time: first 3 seconds most important. 8 seconds, I think, is really good for short, snappy video content that grabs someone's attention.
Brilliant, thanks, Dan. And yeah, thanks for the presentation. I think it was really informative as always. We do have a couple more events coming up actually. So we have 2 pitching events which you can come along to. One next Tuesday and one the Tuesday after that. You find all the details of that on the Space to Grow website. And if you want any more information about anything we do at the University of Essex UEZ team, all you need to do is just email uez@essex.ac.uk and we'll happily give you some more information about the Angels platform or the Space to Grow program. So yeah, we'll wrap up there. So thanks again for your time, Dan, and thank you everyone for coming.